Welcome to Behind the Play, a video and podcast product of The Hoop Show that explores the lives of Geelong players past and present, as well as the off-field figures that are keeping us Geelong strong. My name is Paul James, and today I have the great pleasure to introduce Amanda. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you on, and I really look forward to kind of picking through your interest in the Cats and experiences with the Cats and all things Geelong shortly. But yeah, as I said, thank you so much for coming on the show. I guess getting into the weeds for people, and we were discussing this just before we started. The sequence that Ben puts these episodes up in, I have no idea, but you're actually the first guest that is coming on board for the year. And so thank you very much for kind of getting the ball rolling. I promise I won't be saving my worst for you. I promise.
No, I'm super excited. I am excited to talk about it, given obviously that it is the lull of the off season at the moment. So I'm super excited to feel like it's just around the corner and it's sort of back in my world again.
Yeah, it feels like things are just starting to ramp up. We are, I guess, for all transparency for people, we are recording this in January, so pre-season there's a fair bit of it still to come. But you start seeing and hearing little bits and pieces in the news, and you start hearing about players who are training the house down, and you start hearing about the occasional injuries and those sorts of things. You hear the good, the bad, but it does kind of give you that sniff that things are getting a little bit closer. Once you kind of get over that New Year's hump and things just start to speed up a little bit. So it's an exciting time, and I'm keen to pick through that love of Geelong with you. So where did it all begin for you? I guess, how did footy enter your life? And I guess specifically, how did the Cats become your team?
So my dad grew up in Geelong. He grew up in For the Locals. His house was on Ballyang Street, so like just off Marrable Street. Which he points out to me every single time we go to Geelong, which is like 4 or 5 times a year together. So he grew up in Geelong, and so I kind of didn't really have a say in it. Not that I would have it any other way, obviously. But my earliest memories are going down to Geelong with my dad, because we live southeastern suburbs now. And either going to the footy or when I was really little, sitting next to my great-grandfather who had like a little footstool next to his armchair, and he would be watching them in their house in Geelong, and I'd sit next to him on the little footstool. And this is when I was like 3 or 4 years old. So it
started real early.
Yeah, real early.
Was there ever a scenario where you may not have been a Cats fan? It's not unusual for kids to maybe bounce between teams, or was there zero chance of that happening in your household?
Zero chance, but not like, I would say by and large, I'm the biggest Geelong supporter like in the family now.
Yeah. Okay.
There wasn't a chance with me. My sister was sort of brainwashed by my grandmother, who was a Essendon supporter when she was little. You'd be pleased to know that she is no longer an Essendon supporter, and is a paid up Cats member and goes along with me now and is like super into it all. Very late to the footy world, but we're happy to have her, obviously.
No, that's awesome. And yeah, there's maybe something about Essendon supporters wanting to jump ship, because my wife was Essendon as well, and she defected when we met, really.
Smart.
And I guess it kind of helped that shortly prior to us meeting, there was the whole Essendon drug scandal. That kind of helped, I think, my case as well. Yeah. She was feeling a little bit shaken, a little bit broken up by what had happened at the club, and then a very loud and proud Geelong supporter who had pretty fresh success kind of comes bounding into her life and put a hard pitch together, I guess. Yeah. So right time, right place. Geelong Football Club. I'm owed a finder's fee, please.
Right.
And so how did things kind of develop, I guess, from there? So, obviously very, very young age, established, you're a Cat supporter. Of course, it took a little while before the dam wall cracked with 2007. What was it like in those early years where you'd see finals losses, you'd see and hear disappointment coming out of all the kind of negative stories that unfortunately kind of followed the Cats for a while, or the sad and disappointing stories, before we finally got to the dam wall breaking?
Yeah, my dad just always used to take us because of going down to Geelong. So I think because it was just so present in my life anyway. And I guess when you are a kid, you probably you're not, maybe some kids are, but you're not as sort of invested or to know exactly what's going on. And I think that it helped me latching on to like favorite players.
Of course.
Instead, and so just like latching on to like this player is my favorite and this player is my favorite. So I guess maybe when I was younger I wasn't so invested in the results. I think when I started, like when I was a teenager and realizing that my dad, the last premiership was when he was 2 years old at the time, before 07, and then being like, wow, actually that is a long time. Like, wow, and is that going to happen for us? And then, before you knew it, it was like this.
Yeah, it's very, very rapid incline, and suddenly it feels like success is only a year or two away on any given year.
Yeah.
I guess you mentioned yourself kind of gravitating towards certain players. So I guess early days, who were some of those players that really, I guess, tickled your fancy?
I absolutely loved Matthew Scarlett from when he first started. Like, I loved him, and actually, and sort of cross over him a little bit earlier, but Peter Riccardi as well. And I remember
something about the curly locks a little bit, or
maybe.
Something about the curls, that just.
And I remember going down to Geelong one time. It was after Peter Riccardi had retired, but I can't remember what it was for, like a family day or something. And I bumped into him, and it was when selfies weren't really a thing, but they kind of were. And so I held up my digital camera. I was like, can we get a photo? And I think he thought, oh, we'll take it with someone else.
Yeah, someone
but I held it up like this, and he was like, oh, okay. But yeah, that was some of the earlier players that I remember just being besotted with.
Little known fact, you were leading the way for the selfie revolution that came after.
Yeah,
pioneer, I believe, is the phrase we should be using.
Riccardi, who knew?
Just another notch on his belt, really, into helped create the selfie.
Yeah.
And so obviously, Scarlo, I guess you got to catch from the beginning of his career there and follow through, versus, as you say, kind of Peter Riccardi more towards the tail end there. But I guess, what was it about outside of the curls? Apparently, what was it about Scarlo in particular, as you got to really see the entirety of the career there? What was it about him that really struck you? Because I guess, for as brilliant as Scarlo is, and any Cats fan worth their salt loves and adores Scarlo, but typically when someone, I guess, clicks with a player, they tend to be a midfielder, they tend to be a forward, because there's kind of the glitz and glamour of the role. I think it helps. Yeah. But not necessarily the case for Scarlo. He doesn't hit the scoreboard too often. So
no, I don't know what it was. I think it's sort of cliche and as obvious as it is. I just don't recall him ever, and I'm sure there were, but it was like he never had a bad game. There was never anything wrong. He was never the player that you were like, come on, what are you doing? I feel like I never had that feeling towards him. They throw around the term like barometer, but yeah, I feel like I would have never looked at him and thought, you could have done more, or why did you do that? Or I wasn't yelling his name in a bad way during play. So I think that's where it came from, that he was just so dependable and very stoic, and I just didn't feel like he ever got it wrong.
Yeah, I tried to take a moment there to have a quick look and see, what was the greatest number of goals kicked against Matthew Scarlett. Now, the internet's not making it easy for me, and it's always trying to do a steer me towards the big footy forums, which doesn't really help too much. Yeah. But the fact that information's not also readily available suggests that the number's pretty small. I'm sure he probably had a bag of 5 kicked against him early in the piece. There was a lot of big hulking forwards early days from Lloyd to Garrick and those sorts of guys. And I'm sure one of them got a hold of him really early on in his career. But yeah, I certainly don't think of, I don't compare him to like a Zach Dawson, for example, who, got thrown under the bus by Alistair Clarkson back in the day and had Anthony Rocker kick 10 or 11 against him. And it's just, it's good for his development. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. Throw the game, and also probably take the blowtorch to some of his confidence for many years to come. But anyway, that was a tactic that I guess eventually worked out for Hawthorn. So to hell with them. Yeah, no, we don't like to celebrate them too much. I guess, was there anyone else that you kind of, I guess, gravitated towards as you got more and more exposure to the game? And obviously, even since Scarlo, joined the club, it's been, more than 20 years at this point. Yeah. Anyone else that you found yourself really attached to over the years for whatever reason?
I feel like if you ask this question to any Geelong supporter worth their salt, you're going to get the same
Joel.
answer. Yeah,
It's fair though. It's perfectly fair.
I just like adore him. That sounds so like fangirl, but not in like fangirl way. I just like, how can you not? I remember that first season, and just being like,
Who is this
guy,
kid?
like, what is this? And I think that, I mean, sure, and we've obviously got Gary Ablett as well, but I think that on the flip side of like Matthew Scarlett being like that dependable, doesn't get it wrong, when we're talking about being drawn to someone flashy, that was from day dot. Like,
yeah.
There was no question, and that was never. I mean, and obviously he got better and better and better and better, and then we literally got the fairy tale ending. And I think I tweeted a while ago, and I wasn't being facetious, but no one is going to have a career like that ever again. Like,
no, you wouldn't have thought so. Although it's really, because obviously he had all the skill, he had all the qualities as a leader as well, kind of there, ready to kind of go. But at the same time, you also need to sometimes just rock up at the right place at the right time. And he arrived at Geelong at the perfect time to launch his career with a rising star and a premiership, and then just continue to grow and grow, have these incredible leaders around him. But they also didn't all fall out at once. They phased out, and so he had these leaders consistently around him that helped build his own craft. He was then finally ready to step into the boots, and he still had some of those leaders around to help support him and lean upon him. For him to lean upon, until eventually he was 110% ready to just drive this club by himself, and he did so in such an incredible way. And then, as you say, got the fairy tale finish with the grand final, that incredible goal. Got to finish his career as a premiership captain, which I guess is. There's been a little bit of a trend of that in recent years, in recent premierships, I should say, for the Cats. Lingy and Tom Harley, obviously, as recent example. Other examples. So who knows? I mean, Danger. Maybe that means Danger's going to win a premiership in the next for us in the next couple of years before he's done. Not trying to will Danger out the door too quickly, but like, whenever that time comes, but I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing a premiership next year. So Danger, do you want to call it quits next year? We can go out with a flag.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how it goes. You get to this club and this is what we do. You become the captain. This is what happens.
So, psych everyone out. Say I'm going to retire, so the Cats win the premiership, and then pump fake and play again the following year.
Yeah.
Or is that messing with the fortunes and luck and jinxing it too much? I don't know. Anyway, so obviously he arrived at such a brilliant time. 2007, that success. You'd spoken about obviously family experiences and dad, only being around for. I guess 2 years before the premiership there. So what was it finally like when you got to experience that 2007 premiership? Where were you? Were you fortunate enough to go? If not, where were you watching from?
Yeah, 2007, I was watching from home with dad. And I mean, obviously that premiership stands out to a lot of people for different reasons. But I just remember not even sort of realizing what was happening and not being able to process it, because I mean, really, like, come quarter time, she was kind of done.
It was pretty close to done, yeah.
And
a bit like 2022, really.
I just couldn't. I couldn't get my head around sort of like what I was watching. And there's a photo of me somewhere that Mum's taken of me like standing up like this right at the end. And I was excited, and I was super excited for my dad, because I knew that, because as you get older, you sort of learn about the periods that you missed. Like, I was very, very young for that early 90s period, and he'd seen them through the 80s as well. And so I sort of didn't really understand. And then as you get older, you learn about, wow, this is really like, this is what they mean when they talk about a drought. And for him to have seen that was just that. I think I got more out of that initially than for myself, because I was 18 at the time. Like, it was exciting. Of course it was exciting, but I think I was so, so excited for my dad.
Yeah, completely understood. And I mean, you and I have a similar sort of vintage there. So again, kind of didn't necessarily have the greatest level of context for what happened I mean, I was born in 89. And so obviously the incredible 89 grand final, we know it was incredible. We didn't have context and certainly weren't conscious enough to be able to understand what was going on. And really that kind of extends into a lot of those early 90s ones as well, where just too young to really grasp it and certainly don't have the history. But you learn about that, and then you go through moments of heartbreak. You think about 2005 and Nick Davis and all those sorts of things that we don't like talking about. And there was the longest time where I wouldn't actually speak his name. It was only when I had him on the show last season I kind of had to learn to get over that one. And in fact, great credit to Nick Davis. He was a wonderful guest, and I would happily chat to the man again. It was a good opportunity for me to, I guess, get over some nestled deep trauma, I think. But
release those demons.
And get to chat to him. Incredible. He was awesome. But it's I guess a really fascinating one. And I guess because your dad, at 2 years old, wouldn't have necessarily been able to appreciate what was going on around him in a similar sort of sense to what we would have with losing grand finals. I guess you both really got to experience this together in a pretty deep way.
Yeah. And that, I mean, what footy has brought me in terms of like the things that I share with my dad, like that's a huge part of my footy journey is what I've shared with my dad anyway. So yeah, obviously, seeing that together, watching that together at home in 2007 was great.
Yeah.
The next year, not so much.
Yeah, we try not to talk too much about it.
Yeah, he went on his own. He'd never been to a grand final, and he went to that on his own. I didn't go. And yeah, I was pretty devastated for him that day.
Yeah. I was there for what grand final have I missed? I've missed 2009. Sorry, that's the one, and I guess 2020, I suppose. In terms of the Geelong grand finals, in the modern era. But yeah, unfortunately, I had to be there for 2008. That was a pretty soul-destroying day. The only advantage in my case there is I was working part-time at a pizza place, and they needed me to get to work, so I was able, I didn't necessarily have the time to process in the way I needed to, and just sped out the door.
Yeah.
And I kind of got my revenge on them, those employers, because the next year they were St Kilda supporters. They were a family of St Kilda supporters, and they didn't let me go to that grand final. As I mentioned, I missed 2009, but they all had to walk back into the shop that I was running for them while they were gone as a Geelong supporter, and I decorated that place and had a smirk.
Nice.
I was more than ready for them to finally arrive to go and claim their business back. So
nice one.
Maybe that's a horrible thing to do, but
yeah, whatever.
Yeah. So I guess did you have the opportunity through that, I guess, especially golden period, 7, 9, 11, to attend any of those grand finals?
I did. So we went, my dad and I then got tickets together in 2009.
Nice.
And we got amazing seats. Like we were a couple of bays across from the Geelong cheer squad. We were like 8 rows from the front. And it was where like a lot of I know the pre-match entertainment is so different these days, but it was right where a lot of that was like going either to and from the ground. So we were just so immersed in it. And I remember my palm was bruised from clapping so much and like grasping my hand so much in the last quarter. I couldn't speak. I was like absolutely hysterical. And I do remember looking at my dad, like when the siren went, I jumped up. He's an older guy, he's a bigger guy. He wasn't going to jump around.
Yeah, he's a little bit slower about it, more careful.
Yeah. But I looked at him and my dad and I are both very emotional people, and he was like tearing up. So awesome. That was just, obviously we watched 07 together. Then he got to go in 08 to his first one, and then that went the way that it went. But then to be there together and have that experience together again was just like so special. And I routinely said for the longest time that was the best day of my life. And I remember talking to one of my girlfriends who's not a footy girl, and she was like, Amanda.
Couldn't understand it. Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm dead serious. Like, I'm dead serious.
Yeah, I can completely understand and appreciate. But yeah, I do also understand that some people who maybe don't have that investment in the sport or maybe don't like the sport at all, can't necessarily comprehend the importance of these sort of moments. But when you add the family variable on top of it, easy to see why.
Yeah.
Been to any other grand finals, good, bad, or otherwise?
Yeah, I went to 11. And I don't know why. I feel like I remember that one the least. I don't know what it is about that day. I know that it was raining, and I know that it was like a bit crappy and horrible. Obviously, it was still a great time. I went with my yeah, exactly. I went with my then boyfriend, who was a Collingwood supporter.
Does he see why you dropped him?
Yep, good. And he was more excited. I think he said at the start of the game, I would rather Geelong win because I don't want to deal with you if they lose. He was not like,
right?
Yeah, not like an avid, like one-eyed, full-on Collingwood supporter. I know, strange, right? They exist.
Had all his teeth?
Yeah.
Huh.
I think he's a fraud. In hindsight,
can't be a real Collingwood supporter if you've got unless you've got dentures. You don't have a full set.
I think he was faking it. Anyway, but yeah, he did say that to me.
Sorry to the Collingwood supporters listening here. I'm sure I'll see you in the comments.
And then, I went in 22, and
fantastic.
That has probably now overtaken as the best day of my life from 09.
No, that's awesome. And I guess thinking about 2022 is a more recent one. Did you manage to get those same or really awesome seats, get nice and close to the action? How was that immersion? I guess if you're talking about it being even better again.
So I had much worse seats. I was not right up nosebleeds, but I was not up on level 4. But I was with Rach.
Yep.
Enderfield. And I think that made it for me. There was no way I was going to have a bad time if I went with her. We went to the pub beforehand with her partner and her mum. We were all going. Rach and I were sitting together. Her mum was sitting separately, and her partner was sitting separately as well. But just the whole day was just so, like, I made cocktails for myself at home for breakfast. So that's how the day started.
So then, that if things didn't go well, that you were ready. And if things went really well, you were also really ready.
Really ready. But yeah, we went to a pub on Swan Street beforehand for lunch all together. We were chatting with everyone there. We did the walk to the ground all together. And it was so special because we had each other there. We've become such close friends because of footy, and sitting with her and sharing that day with her and all of those emotions with her was so good. And we didn't let ourselves get excited. Honestly, it was so dumb looking back at it now. But even at 3/4 time, we were like, we
could screw this up.
We just got to get the first 1 or 2, and then we're done. But I think very early on, we both looked at each other and we were both a little bit merry, and had a bit of a tear in our eye, we're really going to do this. We're really going to do this.
Look, I can still understand. I mean, especially given how some prelim finals and those sorts of things had gone for us in previous years, and I guess even 2020's grand final as well. I can totally understand that little bit of pause and worry. I think there was moments where I got a bit carried away in the second term. In the end, justified, but they did start. There was that brief period at the end of halftime where they had a good 5 minutes just before halftime. I thought, hang on. And I just, kind of shrunk back into the seat a little bit, and then thankfully started the second half nice and strong, and that was okay. No, we're good. They haven't fallen asleep over the break. We're good. We're good. No.
I remember saying to the guy sitting next to me, I said, even if Sydney come at us this quarter, if we can score 4 goals this quarter, even if they score, I'm confident we've got enough. And then there was 3 in the first 10 minutes or something like that. Yeah, he was like, you did say 4, and I was like, yeah.
Close enough, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess on the day-to-day, you've obviously, you've spoken about this deep love of the game and kind of, the importance of even Rach within that. I guess what does it look like in terms, for you trying to immerse yourself in that game on the day-to-day, during the season, out of the season? How are you trying to keep yourself connected with the game?
I mean, at work, it sort of became habit Monday mornings. One of the guys in my team, bless him, is a Carlton supporter, but he's a nice guy, I promise. But that was a thing to just sit and chat with him most mornings. Actually, I wouldn't even say Monday mornings, just regularly. And even in the off season, like his nephew is sort of a bit of an up and comer. And, you know, he would talk to me about that. So anywhere where I can hear the conversation, I want to be part of the conversation. So even if it is, in the off season, if someone's talking about, you know, like this up and comer or such and such's friends got drafted or like whatever it is, I just want to be in the conversation. So anytime I hear the words, like my ears prick up and I'm like, that's the people I need to talk to.
Yeah, I'm a little bit the same. There's just, if there's any opportunity to talk football at work, you know, I don't care who the person is, I'll jump in, and I guess it kind of helps these days that a few people know that I do football related content, and so they're keen to kind of chase me down to chat. And a colleague there's partner is Carlton's head recruiter, so then I get to chat to them about some of the goings on, not necessarily at their own club. Don't worry, people, I'm not breaking exclusives or anything here, but just get a little bit of education, I guess, on even just how the system works. Yes, it's through the lens of another club, but just to kind of, you know, that understanding, it's fascinating knowledge to have. So totally understand. And, you know, especially if there are those connections along the way, it's really, really cool.
Yeah. My, actually just, recently, my cousin, her partner is the ruck coach for the AFLW GWS team.
Okay.
Cool. And I met her the other night, and I was asking her, like, what happens in the off season and what do the girls do and what does she do, given, you know, obviously with AFLW, the seasons are shorter and the timing is a lot less, but how much time do they have to spend at the club? And even getting in on those conversations to know, like, what happens in the background and that kind of thing. Like, I really wanted to sort of pick her brains about how she goes about that with her day-to-day job and what the girls are doing now and how they carry on their training. And I was super excited to get to talk to her about that.
Yeah, it's certainly fascinating, especially on the women's side, because as you said, the season's shorter, so the preseason can be longer, and then you've got the variable. I guess at the moment things are starting to improve, but you know, with the work that's been done on the CBA there to try and get the earnings for all the girls up, at the moment still your bottom end, you know, kind of fresh draftees or rookies, still probably, you know, in the eyes of some, and you know, I won't dare speak for anyone, but you know, probably still aren't earning enough yet necessary to be able to commit 100% to this being full-time. I think there's probably a good chunk of the competition that now can, but still those really early players probably aren't earning enough yet to be able to justify it. And so, as you say, you know, they're working their day-to-day jobs, and then obviously coaches, you know, similar sort of deal. Some might also, even if they're earning enough, might, you know, it's a longer layover between seasons. And so feel like they, you know, there's that itch that still needs scratching, or they have that love of that other industry or passion that they've had, and still want to engage with that. So it's a really interesting space to kind of what's going on there. But hopefully, at least on the income side, that can continue to improve such that the pressure isn't there. And if someone wants to go on, you know, work or whatever, they do so because they love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, certainly having those, I guess, networks is really, really cool in terms of getting some of that insight. And I guess as we cast a bit of an eye towards, I better make sure I get my ears right, 2024.
Yeah,
we are recording this in a bit of a vacuum, but I guess how do you see things shaping up for the Cats team, both the men's and the women's? We'll start with the men's because that's the season that's going to, I guess, approach us first. How are you seeing things shaping up? Obviously, there wasn't a great deal of activity on the trade and free agency side in terms of players coming in for the Cats this year. The draft saw us pick up a few young guns, hopefully, but I guess, how are you seeing things shaking up? We were obviously talking about Danger retiring with a premiership this year, of course. So how do we get there if that's the case?
Yeah, I feel like last year was the first year that sort of taught me that I have to be realistic with footy. And it's not like I've been unrealistic. It's just that in my adult life, like I don't know anything except us being very successful. And that becomes the norm because that's all you know. And so it's very easy, even in footy tipping, to tip them every week because why wouldn't you?
You feel like you should tip them, yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm realistic this year. I don't think this fall off the cliff moment is coming. I don't. The list is older, sure, and those players it kills me to talk about, but they're obviously players that are, in the very late stages of their career, but and so I know that, but there's still those players, and there's still those players that got us to where we are, that got us the success that we did. And a lot of them over an extended period and a sustained period of time. So I just don't see that this year is the year where they're like, yeah, well, we're just not good anymore. I don't think that happens. Look, realistically, do I think it kills me? Look, I don't think
do we make the top 8?
I think we make the top 8. I do. Yeah. I think we scrape in. I would like it to be a little bit less like the end of the season, where it was like, I think Rach and I had a conversation. We were like, look, can we just know, like, just tell us if we're going to make it or not, just tell us. I don't want it hinging on a result of this game or this. Just tell us.
Let it be done. One way or the other, let it be done.
At least we know. I don't think so, because I think that there are perhaps learnings to take from last year, being one of the first years where, there was a slide down the ladder, and being one of the first years where they've had to deal with it in it's such a stark contrast to the year before. So I think that inevitably there's got to be some learnings from that.
For sure.
And again, there's such an exciting group. Sure, we've got some new young guys that have come in. Whether those guys jump straight in, mostly
that remains to be seen. Yeah,
but that sort of young group around that 20, 22-year-old mark, that group of players is exciting. And they're good.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we've seen it time and time again. I mean, Brian is in that window, and he was, robbed of an All-Australian jersey this past year.
Was he ever?
You think about that, and he's got 10 plus years still. Like there's and growth presumably in front of him as well. So it's quite incredible.
So you throw in, okay, maybe some of these are a little bit older, but you throw in like a Brian or Brad Close. I mean, I'm obsessed with Ollie Henry as well.
Absolute gun. Absolute
just unreal. That group, again, that doesn't just drop off.
Well, that's half of your future forward line too. Sure, they're not the key position players, but that's 3 of the 6 positions filled.
I think they already have shown so much. And I think that group then only gets better. So, I don't think that top 4 is where we're going to end up being realistic, because as much as you can adore the players on the list and believe in them and know their strengths and know that they're extremely talented, there are 17 other clubs, and of those there are a few absolute standouts. Yeah. So you are realistic, because your players might be good, but so are theirs. So I don't think top 4 is where things end for us.
What if, because I guess I'll throw the question at you. So I recently, and for the Hoop Show, and people can go check it all out on YouTube, it might be a bit dated by the time this goes live, but whatever. I was putting together a whole bunch of report cards on basically every single player who stepped out for the AFL team over the course of the year. And as I was doing so, I was starting to realize, oh my God, this injury was curtailed. Sorry, this season was curtailed by injury to this person. This, this, and just the lack of continuity that affected so many players. So if I throw the hypothetical at you that we have a good run of injury, like a 2022 as an example, it wasn't without injuries, because we still had, Jezza, teasing us with hamstrings, and Rhys Stanley doing what Rhys Stanley does, which is, miraculously getting injured at weird and random points. Like, we weren't completely immune, but we had a very good run for the most part. If we can have a year similar to that, then what? Because the bulk of that list, I mean, we've lost Isaac Smith. That's it from that 2022 and Joel, I should say. Sorry, and Joel, I should say. I can't believe I just forgot Joel. But I guess from 2023 to 2024, in terms of the premiership players, we've only lost one of them.
Yeah,
so if we have a good bill of health, what does that say?
Maybe a good bill of health has us comfortably getting that spot 5 or spot 6. With not a lot of worry, not a lot of, are we going to make it? Like, maybe a strong patch through the season where you do have the luxury to think, okay, we know we're going to play September, like last year.
Let's manage a little bit to try and get ourselves
the
best possible chance.
I think if everything went well, then sure, put us in for, pencil in 5th or 6th without
maybe home final.
Yeah,
for the first week at least.
What's a home final?
Well, yeah, I know. Maybe we're playing against Gold Coast or something, and so there's
the slight chance.
As long as it's not GWS, who can apparently just win anywhere they go, specifically in Geelong.
Or Freo, that just
they just seem to do a number on us every time we
GMHBA
play a final.
is their fave. Yeah. So I would put us there. Look, I'm realistic, and as much as a Geelong fan, like a footy fan in general, and as much as it kills me, Collingwood were going to win that flag from like round 5 or 6 last year. Like,
it felt like it, and they nearly, in the very Collingwood way, they nearly coughed it up. But
yeah, I was hoping and praying, but they were exciting to watch, and it
was brilliant.
They're so good. They're so good, and Brisbane is as well. I just don't know that there's enough sort of wiggle room with those teams that I sort of see in that top tier for us to go, I think we can match that. I don't think that. But I would never.
You can't rule them out at the end of the day, I guess. No. The talent is there, and it's proven. So
because how many times
Geelong, you always feel like there's a chance. So,
and I mean, we've heard it twice now in this successful period, because we heard it before 2011. They're too old. They're too slow.
Gary Abbott's gone. Yeah. And now it's, too old, too slow. Joel Selwood's gone.
Yeah. I mean, and we heard how old we were before 2022 as well.
Yeah.
And you know what? It worked. So I think that we do have that in us as a club and as a culture. You simply can't. You couldn't confidently say, "No, we're cooked. We're done."
Yeah. No, and I'm completely on board with that. And so with that, let's put all our hope in a clean bill of health for the year, that Cam Guthrie comes back and dominates, as we know. And
I've missed him so much.
And I think Ben and I have spoken about on different shows, we do need him to come back with the dreadlocks again. I think he lost some of his magic powers when he shaved his hair. I don't know if that's just a conspiracy theory, but I think he needs to bring that back. Might be too late.
Have we seen him out on the park lately? Do we know what?
I mean, he'll be out there, but I don't know if I've just not looked in the right place. I don't think I've seen any photos as of yet.
Okay.
So there's a bit of me just hoping.
I'm going to be on the lookout.
Hoping right now that he wakes up and there's just suddenly dreadlocks there. I can't remember what piece of fiction it is where the hair just keeps growing, but let's go with that. Well, as we start to wrap things up and wind things down, I guess a few top level sort of questions now. In your eyes, who is the greatest cat of all time?
Joel Selwood.
Fair and easy, and I think we've spoken a little bit about how and why that's the case.
Yep.
Schoolyard pick. You've got Gary Jr. and Gary Sr. in front of you, and you can only choose one. Which way are you going to go? And there's good reasons for either, so I'd be kind of curious to know what your justification is.
Gary Jr. That is a tough call.
It's a tough question. So.
Look, and I'm probably more familiar and have a little bit more of affinity just due to the footy that I watched and the age that I was, so that probably helps. But that excitement factor, like I was saying, you didn't see Scarlett have a bad game, but when did you ever see a bad passage of play that he was involved in? You didn't.
It's true, yeah. Rarely did something go wrong when Gary Ablett had his hands on the ball.
It wasn't even that it was fine. It wasn't even like, oh, we'll be fine here. It was like, wow, this is going to be good. Yeah. And so I think that excitement and that unpredictability as well is why I would pick him.
That's fair enough. No, I completely understand it. There's plenty of good reasons for people to go one way or the other, so I totally appreciate it. We've spoken about Scarlo, we've spoken about Joel, we've spoken about all these favorite players that you've had over the years, but neither Scarlo nor Joel are there anymore, unfortunately. So who is kind of your current favorite player at the Cats? Who's the one that you have to watch every week? Get that little bit of extra special attention from you.
Last year, it was Ollie Henry. Like, I was so excited to watch every single game from that round 1 game. And sure, there was that one time.
He got tackled. Yeah, unfortunately.
But not even saying take that out. That game, I was like, yeah, this kid's on it. Like, so.
Thanks for doing the early work for us there, Collingwood. Really appreciate it.
So look, it is probably Ollie Henry at the moment. And I mean, if I had to, I'm going to go with two.
That's fine. More than welcome.
Tom Stewart is the,
of course,
obvious standout. Yeah.
I mean, fantastic choices there, and totally don't blame me. I think Ollie's going to be good for us for a long time. Again, thanks, Collingwood. I guess Ollie kind of fits the bill, but I'll ask you to pick someone different in this particular case. Is there we've kind of touched on the new crop that is starting to come through that will hopefully be faces of the Cats for the next decade and beyond. Mm-hmm. Is there anyone from that really young group that maybe you've not even seen a huge amount of yet that is, for whatever reason, you've latched onto him, you think, okay, that's a player that is going to take us a long way in the future?
Oh, who have I latched onto it, I think, long way in the future? Maybe it's just that I want to see more, and that Irish imports by and large have had really good roles. And not even like huge, not all of them are massive, like big name, like match winners. But I really, really want to see a lot of O'Sheen. Like I really want to, I really want to see what he can do and where his career will go with us. Just given the success and having a read into his success, obviously over in Ireland and everything that he's done there, I would love to see how that translates and how we can make the most of that.
No, it's a fantastic pick. I mean, we only got a very small sample size of him last year, but he really, firstly, the fact that the club already felt like he was ready to make that jump says volumes about him already. Mm-hmm. But to have another full preseason and to have been able to reflect on what did and what didn't work for him in his debut season, to develop those skills further, to get more comfortable with the shape of the ball, all those natural sort of things that is good for any player, let alone someone who's basically spent no time with the game until the last 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, and wasn't it like he played
crazy what he could do?
2 or 3 like full games before his debut, which is just. And I don't think that Chris Scott is he's never really strikes me as the kind of coach that's like, we'll
toss the kid again.
We'll see how we go. That doesn't happen. You don't see freebies given out like that from Chris Scott. So
not when you're chasing silverware every year.
Yeah. So I am really excited to see what 24 has in store for him.
Awesome. And we touched on the women's game before as well. How do you see that traveling going into 2024? Now we've got a very long wait before the season itself kicks off.
I know.
But I guess similar sorts of questions as well. I mean, who are some of the players that you're really following closely there?
Yeah.
But I guess how are you feeling about the girls as we head into the next season?
Really excited. I think that I would say that last year, 23 and 22, was when I really started like paying proper attention to it and sort of learning who these girls were and what the list looked like. And I was almost kicking myself for not going sooner, because the first time I went and watched them, I was like, these girls are so good. Like, they're so good. So I'm really, really excited about their season. I don't think that it's a stretch for them to go one further than we went last year. I really don't think that's a stretch, because they matched it with the best last year, and only marginally.
We're unlucky not to make it in the end.
Yeah. So I really think that there's no reason that those girls can't go all the way. I absolutely love, it's the obvious choice again, but you have to love Georgie. And I love Amy McDonald as well. I think, they're both standouts for me. I think those girls are absolutely awesome.
And just everything you hear, I guess, we've heard so much about that Geelong culture for years and years and years. And it's had these opportunities to kind of grow and flourish with the incredible leaders that we've had. And it's so well documented. But you look at what you see from the girls, and you obviously mentioned 2 fantastic examples there at the top with Georgie and Amac. but obviously with Megan McDonald at the helm and so many other wonderful girls there as well, like you can just see that same kind of, it's not a Geelong men's culture, it is a Geelong culture, and
absolutely,
it penetrates every part of the club. From see it kind of the administrative level to on field with both the men's and the women's teams. It's amazing, and I love watching the girls play for the same reasons I love seeing the men play, because they just display all the qualities that you want to see from a footballer, regardless of the result.
Yeah, and I think going down to Geelong to watch my first women's game, and talking about that sort of permeating that culture through the club, and the club sort of extending out to include the supporters, it was so great to see, like the older couples that have lived around the streets of Geelong their entire lives, like they're going along as well. And that's just that, these couples in their 70s and 80s, they're rocking up and they're going to see the girls as well. And I've said to a few people this year that kind of support, I think maybe in the early days was a little bit maybe like tokenistic and, this is what we should do. But I really felt like being there, listening to the crowd and watching the people going and hearing people talk about it, that there is genuine excitement, that it's Geelong as a club as a whole, and it isn't the women's team and the men's team. It is really the entire
it's just
club.
The Geelong Football Club.
Yeah. And that you can't buy that culture. Like, we are so blessed with the culture that club has. And it that's very hard to replicate, and that isn't the norm, and you don't see that at every club. And I'm always so grateful that that's the culture of the club for Geelong.
Yeah, it's been incredible, and it continues to be great. And it's been awesome to see kind of the influx of people attending women's games. Now, I'll admit I haven't actually been able to go yet. It's just been kind of the downside of two little kids at the age they are, and I haven't been able to go to many men's games either in the last couple of years. I basically banked all my credits for the 2022 finals, and that paid off.
Yep.
But then it was okay, I'll get back to owing a bit of home time and those sorts again. Try and support my wife a bit. But it's absolutely on my list this year to get to as many of the women's games as possible. Bring my kids along. It's such a great atmosphere as well. It's been awesome. So, and success helps as well.
Absolutely. And my sister, I've got a 3-year-old niece, and she took her to one of the women's games close to her, and she said it was so fun, and it was so good to have the kids there because it's a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more chilled out. So you have to take the little ones along with you.
Very much looking forward to it. They did their first men's game with the country game last year, and Hawk kicking 8, and they were very, very, very excited about that.
Nice.
But the women's game, they'll be able to get a bit closer to the fence as well, and it'll be a party. It'll be awesome. So highly encourage anyone to get to the women's game over the course of the year, as well as the men's. Go to as much Geelong football as you possibly can, because
go to all of them.
Go to all. Why not all of them?
Everywhere.
Why just state, if you haven't got tickets to gather around, just find a way to do it. Beg, borrow, and steal. Whatever.
Absolutely.
Amanda, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show and to learn about this love of the game that you have, and to share in some of those experiences that you've had as a Geelong supporter through the good and the bad. If people want to follow more of what you're up to and kind of catch some of your thoughts on all things footy, where could they go most of the time?
Most of the time, I refuse to say X because that sounds so weird.
No, it's stupid. We'll call it Twitter.
At Flossy Amanda, FLOSSY Amanda. That's a long-standing in-joke. And when season starts, I become a little bit insufferable. So if that is your vibe, then here I am.
You've got somewhere to go. So make sure to tune in and share thoughts, positive about the Cats too. All the good stuff. We want all good vibes. Good vibes only, please.
All the good vibes.
Well, like I said, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Really, really appreciate it. As we kind of touched on before, I don't feel like I've saved my worst for the first episode. I think it's been an absolute flyer. You've done an amazing job. Thank you so much for coming aboard.
Thank you so much.
Please make sure, if you haven't already done so, people subscribe to the Hoops Crew on YouTube. Check out Behind the Play on podcast feeds. There'll be, once the season kicks off, weekly episodes. So tune into all that and heaps of other stuff on the YouTube channel as well. So catch all of it. We mentioned Rach before, including Rach doing some cool stuff with us over the course of the year, which is going to be awesome. So we'll have to rope you in next.
Absolutely. Count me in.
So Otherwise, Cats fans, thank you very much for watching. Remain Geelong strong, and we'll see you next time.